Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasas Sharanam Suhrit Prabhavav Pralayasthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam. So uh, this is the 18th verse. So 18th verse, what Krishna is trying to say is, again, he is just repeating the same uh, thing again and again, right? What he's trying to say here is, I am the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer. Essentially, all of that. I am the sthanam nidhanam. I am the resting place. Sthanam nidhanam. And I am the bijam, which means I am the seed. Avyayam, imperishable. So, what do you have here? Gati Bharta Prabhu Sakshi. I am the Sakshi, which is I am the sustainer. Then Nivasa Sharanam Suhrut. Prabhavas Pralayas Sthanam. So I am the origin, Prabhava, Pralaya, the dissolution. Sthanam, Nidhanam, Bijam, Avyayam. So I am this seed of creation. So he is again bringing the aspect of that everything is originating from me, everything is sustained in me, and everything dissolves into me. This is something that, again, Vishwarupa Darshanam he showed. If you visualize the animated version of Vishwarupa Darshanam, what we see or what we saw as Vishwarupa Darshanam, or what we can imagine, is a static image. But think of it as an extremely moving and dynamic phenomenon. Things are happening. So there is Vishwarupa Darshanam is, there's this huge form, and everything is happening in that. Happening means there's creation happening, there is destruction happening, there are things that are growing, there are things that are dissolving, there's volcanoes happening, there is tsunamis happening, there is suns rising and stars collapsing, galaxies are exploding, right? And then plant is growing and trees are growing and human beings are born and they live and they die. All of this, just visualize that you are seeing that in that Vishwarupam. Now, in this Vishwarupam, it's not necessary that we have to see. You can, even if we try to collapse our perception of life, if we try to collapse into, suppose 60 years of life we have lived, if you collapse it into like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, how will that be? Right? So many things have been created in us, it has been sustained in us, it has been destroyed and again created and again sustained and destroyed. You can imagine, you'll be able to visualize this whole cycle happening through you at a rapid pace, right? This whole thing that is happening, because it's happening at a pace where it is in relation to our perception. See, right now, I can perceive my, depending on how the human being is constructed, I can perceive time in a certain way. I can perceive light in a certain way. I can perceive sound in a certain way. So, time, light, and sound, because I perceive it within my limited constrained um, condition, this is how it appears, right? There are these videos that are taken called as time lapse videos. Have you watched them? There's a time lapse video. So what they do is they leave the camera, for example, in the forest. They will leave the camera overnight for like several days. And then it captures every little event. But later they do a time lapse of it like 5 days they would have captured something, and they will show it in like a 2 minutes video, and things will happen so rapidly. There'll be something, some creatures will come, some creatures will go, suddenly something, some plant will grow like this, suddenly the flower will come, then again 2 days later the flower will decay, then suddenly leaves will fall, leaves will form. Just visualize the pace at which these things will happen. Will be at a rapid pace because you have done this time lapse. And why can't we experience time lapse in our regular experience? Because our experience of time is conditioned by a certain way we perceive the world. If we were a different creature, we will see this world differently. The same thing, we will see it differently. There are these insects, when there is this rains or something, that when rains come, I've seen this in Coimbatore, it fills up the streets. We were not able to drive the car. So these uh, you know, they have very tender wings, and their life span is just a few hours. So they kind of they're born, they come, they start swarming of the whole place. They'll go around lights, street lights. The street lights will be filled with these small insects. And then they will come, they'll dash against a car, or they'll hit against something, or they'll go somewhere, they'll die. So the span of their lifetime is so little. If your lifetime is just a few hours, imagine the intensity of experience. Every moment will count. Assuming if we had 1,000 years to live, 100 years will not mean anything, right? Now, because we are only living for 70 years, every year counts. Or we live only for 80 years, every year counts. But if my life was just 10 years, then every day will count. It's all about perception. It's all about our relative scale to the scale of time and the perception of light and sound. This is what it is. So imagine when Bhagavan is saying that I am, everything is created in me, destroyed and sustained in me and destroyed in me, we can perceive that in our own lifetimes. We can perceive that whole experience in our own lifetimes just by shortened. In fact, they say when somebody die, when we die, at the time of death, there is this rapid experience of what happens in our lives. It what happened through the 80 years of our life, it comes in a flash before our eyes. So this particular movement that happens, we are not able to perceive it because we are not sensitive enough. We are not sensitive enough while we are living. But if we are able to rewind or think about our life in a compressed form, we will know that there has been so much of creation, sustenance, destruction, that is constantly happening. Now, if you just scale it up to the scale of the universe, it's happening at a much more larger scale, right? At a much larger scale, the same thing is happening. So what Bhagavan Krishna is saying is that I am Alagatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi. I am the Sakshi alone. So when you think about your life, suppose you lived 50 years or 60 years or 70 years, we've lived our lives, whatever, just think about the life you've been a Sakshi across all of these events that have happened to the point where we are right now. The same thing is in Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrit. Right? I am the sustainer, I am the master, I am the witness, I am the abode, I am the shelter, I am the friend. Prabhava pralayasthanam nidhanam bijam avyayam. And from me, the bija, the seed of creation rises. Why? Because the whole thing is cyclical in nature. Whole thing is cyclical in nature, which is why we are wanting to break the cycle. Because what is happening is somewhere we recognize the cycle intuitively. Although we think our life is linear, intuitively we realize that somewhere it's a cycle, it is a pattern, right? Every 12 years Suryan has a cycle. Every 11 years our birth calendar has a cycle. If you notice, every 11 years the day in which you were born will repeat. So suppose you were born on a Sunday, every 11th year your, the day your birthday will arrive will be Sunday, because the calendar kind of repeats itself. Now, every year there is a cycle, every month there is a cycle, every fortnight there is a cycle. So cycle is constantly there. Now the point is, are you becoming aware of the cycle? When we intuitively start becoming aware of the cycle and pattern, then we will want to break it. Because anything ஒரு பாயிண்ட்டுக்கு மேல வந்து ஜிம்ல கூட உட்காந்து நம்ம சைக்கிள் ஓட்டினா we get bored. Right? I always feel this. I rather take a cycle and go out on the road, because sitting and driving in the gym, I feel I'm not getting anywhere. So I I'll tell the gym instructor or friends, if I go with somebody, I'll say that I don't find joy in either running on the treadmill or riding a cycle in the gym, because I don't get anywhere. Even running on the tracks, I sometimes find boring, because it's like circular. You just keep going round and round. Right? When you want to run out, you go run out somewhere and then you go cross some distance and then you come back. At least when the cycle is much larger, you don't feel it's like a cycle, the pattern. Because we intuitively don't want patterns. We don't, we don't, we are, we don't like patterns, means we want to break from patterns. You observe yourself, you will notice that you always want to break from patterns. Which is why even sadhana, when we do something, if you do, for example, 5 years, 10 years, you've done some kind of sadhana, after a certain point you get bored. You're like, how much more do I continue doing the same thing? Let me look at something different. So that is the way. Yes, Mama.
எனக்கு ஒரு இது தோணும். நம்ம பேட்டர்ன் நீங்க சொல்ற மாதிரி even though the humans would like to break the pattern, but nature as itself is following a pattern. And
It
since
does.
we are part of the nature, we also at, at some point probably accept that we also have to follow the pattern.
Yes. That is the phenomenal nature of life,
Right.
which is to be in a pattern. And absolutely right, the way Prakriti has been created is pattern, is based on pattern. What happens is, as this consciousness that we are, when we recognize this pattern, we want to break that pattern. We want to break out of it, and there's this natural urge to break the pattern and get to something which is eternal. See, pattern is repetitive. When something is eternal, it's not repetitive, it's always new. There is this difference, this subtle difference between having experience of something always new, ever new. He spoke about Navaratna Peethasthite in Saundarya Lahari, in Shyamala Dandakam also. Nava means new. Nava also means 9, but also means new, because after 1 to 9, then it's 0 again. 1 to 9, 0. 1 to 9, 0. So Nava means 9, also means after the ninth one, there is a renewal that happens. It's not pattern. That newness is an experience of something that you recognize it as ever new or ever fresh. And it's in the perception. See, the tree, obviously the tree plant grows, the leaves grow, and the leaves decay and the leaves fall off and the plant decays and then again a new plant grows. There is pattern. But if we get really nuanced in our observation, we will see that the leaf that grows on the left side of the plant and the leaf that grows on the right side of the plant are unique. They're very different. Every leaf is unique. Every leaf has a different signature. Now, that nuance we don't observe. And which is why we get stuck in the pattern, which is the pattern of the mind. Nature, in that sense, has pattern, but there is newness in that pattern also, which we don't recognize. We get stuck in the pattern because our mind moves on the surface, not in the essence. If we are able to touch the quality of life in that way, we will notice that the Amavasya that went last fortnight and the Amavasya that's going to come is going to be very different. The moon that I saw last night, of course, the moon is different each night, but the Paurnami that I saw last month and the Paurnami this month are two different Paurnamis. Right? Although it may appear that what Paurnami is coming every month, it may appear. So the point is, the breaking of the pattern is not to come out of Prakriti, to recognize that there is newness in Prakriti itself. Every time there is a new leaf that is born in a tree, it is completely new. Like Jiddu Krishnamurti says, can you see the dewdrop, the sun's rays coming through the dewdrops, reflecting through the dewdrops as a fresh new ray of light every time? When you look at the clouds, can you see this cloud is a cloud that you have never seen before? So the perception has to change in the way to go deeper into the phenomenon of things, so that we are having a nuanced perception, so that we are able to see newness in everything. Why we get stuck in pattern and we get bored is because we live only on the surface, and that is because of our mind. That is because of the mind. What the mind does, it captures the event, and it next time the event occurs, adhe thane அப்படின்னு சொல்லிடும். See, the first time you saw Vishwarupa Darshanam, suddenly I close your eyes and take you there, show the Vishwarupa Darshanam, அப்படின்னு பார்ப்போம். நெக்ஸ்ட் டைம் ஆயிடுச்சு என்ன பண்ணா பார்க்கறச்சு பார்த்தேனே, போன தடவை பார்த்தேனே அப்படின்னு இருக்கும். And then next time I take you to another one, which is maybe there is a, if you noticed, when we were driving down from Kurukshetra to Delhi, near Kurukshetra area, there is a huge Hanuman that is being built. A massive yoga in his yoga, in his yogasana. This huge Hanuman they're constructing. So hopefully when we go, or you go next time to that area, you must notice this. There is one Durga we saw, huge Durga. Like there's a Hanuman that's being built. Now when we see that Hanuman for the first time, we go there and it's like, wow, it will be like that. And the next time we'll say, it's so nice. Third time, yeah, I've seen this. This is called diminishing value of marginal utility. What is that? What is that economic term? Diminishing utility value. Diminishing utility value with time. So the same object, it starts reducing in its value over time. This is why, because this is the way the mind works. The mind operates this way. It always will quickly try to it'll try to compare with the previous experience that you've had, the memory, and then you'll say, oh, I've already seen it. And the mind will always it'll look for something new. It'll search for something new. Why? Because the mind is wanting to break. See, this is a very interesting psychology that we got to observe. The mind is wanting to break from a pattern, but the mind is the one that's creating pattern. The mind creates the pattern. and the mind is wanting to break pattern. The same thing, even in relationships, you see, we
Still, we
assume.
have to mind our mind.
Mind your mind. Yeah, that's true. So in the relationships also, you will see we are always referring to the image of the person we are carrying, not the actual person. So I have been with my wife for like so many years, and we've been with my child for so many years. So I know how my child is going to behave. I know how my wife or my parents, the way they're going to operate, the way they're going to respond. So when I talk, when I interact, I'm already carrying the image, and there is very little room for a new experience to occur. Why? Because I've prejudged the response. Like again, Jiddu Krishnamurti, as example, he says, when you are interacting with somebody, you're always interacting with the image of that person you are carrying in your mind, not the actual person. Because the actual person will change. Like you change, the actual person will change. Say that person, like today you are upset about a certain thing, tomorrow you may not be upset about the same thing. But the person who's seen you upset for that thing will continue to think that you will continue to be upset. This is what we do. We create an image. So the whole story is about, when we perceive, we are looking to break the pattern because the mind likes and wants new experiences, but not realizing that in the same place where you're experiencing a cycle, in the same place you can experience newness. Only thing is, mind should not come in between.
Is it because of Ahankara? The mind is
See,
unable to.
even if you keep, uh, it is the way the mind works, because mind has this repository where it stores information, which is the chitta. Chitta is supposed to be the storehouse within the mind, which is, mind is four component parts: chitta, buddhi, ahankara, and manas. Mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Ahankara chittam. The nirvana shatakam goes like this: mano buddhi chitta, mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham, न च श्रोत्र जिह्वे न च घ्राण नेत्रे. So mano buddhi ahankara chittani nam. Mano, manah, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. So manas is the one that ties. So manas is the vritti, the movement that happens. When I look at something, I like this, I don't like this, I want this, I don't want this. This movement that gets created whenever I come in contact with object, that is manas. Buddhi is the one that makes the decision. Eduklama vendama. Can I? Should I? Should I not? Should I? Can I? Can I? Is it right? Is it wrong? What? So this movement is manas. Manas throws out all different kinds of options. Buddhi says, no, this is the right thing for you. Go for this. How does Buddhi do that? It uses information from Chitta. In the past, by doing this, you got this result. So it's stored in the Chitta. Chitta is the storehouse. And then it says, go ahead or don't go ahead. And then Ahankara is the one that ties all of this together. It says, my manas, my buddhi, my chitta. So Ahankara is the one that ties all of it together. So when the mind observes something and keeps it in the storehouse and looks at all of this, these vrittis that get created in the mind is because that is the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to constantly look at, whenever there's an experience that comes in from the Panchanyanendriyas, the moment that comes, the raga dvesha kicks in, because mind is essentially, the construct of mind is based on raga dvesha. I like, I don't like. right? So when this happens in the mind, when this happens in the mind, the mind what the mind does is, when an incident occurs or you come in contact with something from the outside, it immediately labels it. It gives a label to the object, the experience, the person. It's an object or an event or a person, it will label it immediately and it will store it in the chitta. Now, once you label something, then the next time an event or a person or an object comes in contact, it will try to map it to the chitta. In the chitta with the storehouse, it will try to map it. Because this is a survival instinct. It will try to map it. Now, this aspect of the mind is of the animal. Because even the animal, for example, a rat knows that the snake is going to come and eat me. So it will be careful. Now, we have a further more refined mind which has the ability to discriminate, which the animals don't have. But my discrimination comes from the fact of my liking and disliking, not what my body needs, not what my. So, like for example, when I eat something, it's not necessarily what my body needs, it is because I like the taste. I've enjoyed the taste. The experience of enjoyment is stored in the chitta. Now, I want the same thing. I want the same experience back again and again. So I go in looking for that. And likewise, if I did not like something, that experience is stored in the chitta. So I run away from that the next time I encounter it. This is the pattern in which the mind operates. But at the same time, the mind also realizes that if you are stuck in a pattern, okay, so the thing with the mind that happens is, when something is in a bit of a pattern, the mind goes into a state of boredom, which means it recognizes a repetitive cycle. Why? Because the mind is also looking for something new. See, the thing that the sixth verse, the shloka is there, right? Which is um, uddharet atmanatmanam atmanam avasadayet atmaiva ripuratmana atmana bandhu atmaiva ripuratmanah. So atma, or in this case, you yourself, which is the mind. The mind is your friend, the mind is your enemy. So in that case, what happens is the mind creates the pattern because it has the reference of the chitta. But at the same time, the mind doesn't like pattern, repeated pattern, it doesn't like it, and it's trying to break out of it, but it doesn't know how to break it. It keeps seeking something else, something else, something else. Because the moment it it notices that it has lost the juice of that experience, right? Now, if I drink if I drink one glass of orange juice when I'm really thirsty, the joy I derive, the subsequent time I drink that, the second, it will not be as relishing. Because why? The original desire has been fulfilled. And what happens is, mind has the access to storehouse of desires. So mind, the way the mind oscillates is based on our desires. So one is the input that we get from the sense perceptions. The other is the storehouse of desires that we have, the vasanas. And so when a desire is fulfilled, there is another desire that gets pushed. Because this desire has been fulfilled, another desire gets pushed. and then you try to run behind that next desire. And this is why it's looking for something new. Why? Because your earlier desire is fulfilled. பயங்கரமா வேர்க்கிறது, I want to come and sit in an air condition. I sit in an air condition, apadi, 5 minutes. Now that apadi is feeling is gone after 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Now my mind wants something else. Some other desire gets pushed from the back. Because I have the storehouse of desires sitting, right? The next desire gets pushed. Now the mind is working on that desire. So whenever your desires get fulfilled, a new desire gets pushed, and we start working on that new desire. Not recognizing the pattern that I'm stuck in is fulfilling my desires continuously. And I am not looking at the real thing. I am not looking at the newness of things that are occurring. Like, if we, how many times when we go into a hotel, we went into the hotel, and how many times do we go into the hotel and observe everything in the hotel? Which painting is there a clock, is there, what is the color of this, what is this? We don't, because it's very utility based. We just go there, போனோமா பெட், இது பெட்டியை போட்டோமா, படுத்தோமா, எழுந்தோமா. That is all. It is very utility based. But when the mind becomes very observant, it becomes like a tool that we are using. It's an observant tool. At that time, we are not looking. See, you're not trying to fulfill a desire. When we come out of the pattern of wanting to fulfill a desire, then your observation becomes complete. You see what I'm saying? It's a very interesting this thing, the function of the psyche. When I get over the pattern of desires, see, when we say pattern, there are natural patterns, but the pattern that causes us harm is the pattern of fulfilling our desires. When we get stuck in that pattern, we really don't observe anything. Why? Because we're constantly in the process of fulfilling our desires. But if we keep that and put that into the background, or we say, let me just observe, let me just notice. For what? For no reason. Then the mind becomes sharp and it will start identifying newness. And only a calm mind can do that. An agitated mind, or a mind that is constantly trying to fulfill desires, it cannot do this. So this particular ability to observe and see newness. See, even I'm saying, for example, any small thing, like again plants growing, or you would have kept something on the outside, then again there is a wind, that comes and then moves your things. You've put out something, tuni kaya potirukom, for example, you've put your clothes out to dry. The clothes that you put to dry, you don't put the same clothes every day for drying. You don't put it in the same way. When it gets dried, it does not get dried in the exact same way. There is wind that moves, it shrinks, some clothes shrink, some. When you start looking at the nuances, when we start becoming very observant of the events that occur, you will notice that every time it is new. And why we don't see that newness and we get stuck is because of the pattern of desires, because we are wanting to fulfill something. Avasarama eduthu, we need to quickly, ayyo tuni kaanjiduthe, let me just take out the clothes and then fold it and keep it inside. Ayyo, every day I have to do this. This is where we get a little stuck. So now going back to this, why all of this is to say that when we notice that there are these patterns that repeatedly occur within us, there is this intuitive need for us to break the pattern. And where do you break the pattern? You don't have to go elsewhere to break the pattern. You don't have to go somewhere else to break the pattern. The pattern is broken when you already recognize that you're stuck in a pattern. You recognize that you're stuck in a pattern, and that pattern again is not on the outside. There is pattern on the outside, but it is, we have labeled it, because we have labeled it. Everything is cyclical in nature, but it's not like this. It is like this. You see the difference? Cyclical here keeps just going in one place. But the way universe is expanding, or the universe is evolving, is like this. It goes in a cycle, but it's also linear in nature. So you never hit the same thing twice, ever.
புரியுது பாபுஜி. ஏன்னா அந்த எர்த் வந்து அப்படி சுத்தினே போறோம். The sun
Hmm.
is sun also is moving.
Sun is
So
moving.
we're never on the same spot at all. It just keeps moving. But since we are in the system, when you look at it, as a proper system. But in fact, it's not.
ஆமா.
அதுதான் நீங்க சொல்ல minutest thing கவனிக்கும் போதுதான் we know that this is not repeating.
It is not. Correct. And when can we notice that minute thing? When the mind is calm, the mind is not running behind fulfilling a desire. There, you are not looking at something in nature as a utility. See, right now, only if a rose flower comes in the plant, it is value for me. வரல அப்படின்னா ஆமா ரோஸ் வரல இன்னைக்கு போ அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு போயிடுவோம் நம்ம. Because the rose is not coming, so what is the use? I can't take it and use it for my puja or somehow put it on my head. Utility is what we seek. Now, can we go and see the same rose plant? Oh, beautiful, it's grown. The rose is, the bud is not, there's no rose bud that's come, but it's grown. To whatever extent it has grown, some leaf has come, something new, or maybe the leaf has died, some change has occurred. But we are so driven by our desire towards a particular outcome that puts us in this cyclical pattern. And then we want to break, and we get bored of life. We want to run away from this life. எனக்கு இந்த வாழ்க்கை பிடிக்கல, வேற எங்கேயா போகணும். And this breaking of this pattern will not occur wherever you go, because even if you go to another place, your mind that we carry is the same mind. It will create some patterns there. The desires that you carry are the same. Fundamental desires are the same. The way you perceive life is exactly the same. So you will start feeling suffocated in this planet. Right? Imagine, we will start feeling suffocated because wherever I go, I start seeing the same thing again and again. And then the mind has to come to a realization, like what Mama said, to acceptance that this is the way it is. This is the way life is. And then we start noticing where the problem is. The source of the problem is not in the patterns outside at all. It is right inside. And then, correct. Like Mama saying, Sakshi, Chandra Mama, Sakshi of events. So then when we look at as Sakshi or as a witness, then we realize that this pattern is a mind created pattern, because I run behind the same things. So remember, the cycle that we form, or the pattern that we form, is not of objects or events or people. It is about our desires. We want the same things again and again, or we don't want those things again and again. So that pattern is of our desires. And because we are wanting to fulfill something, we are looking for some purpose. The other day I was listening to Osho. He was saying, somebody asked Bhagavan Rajneesh, he's like, Bhagavan, what is the purpose of life? He said, there is no purpose. There is no purpose to life. But will you be able to live when I tell you there is no purpose to life? You are living with the hope that there is some purpose. And this is the trick of the mind. The mind tells there is some purpose somewhere, something, and we keep running. And even in spirituality, we give it some name. We run behind some Brahman. It's right here. It's, we say Brahman, you have to attain Brahman, and then we point at the sky. Right? We say we have to attain to the Paramatma. We point somewhere. We point somewhere else. I want to attain to God. Point elsewhere. Not realizing that attainment is Swayam Siddhi. See, this is the beauty here. It is already established. It is already known. It is Swayam Prakashaha. It is already that is why they call it as realization or recognition. There is nothing new to be known. It is already here. You already know it. You've forgotten it. You're reminding yourself about it. That is all it is. Now, when can this happen? When we stop running behind the desires of the mind, which keeps coming up from our storehouse of vasanas. And then when we see everything, then you will not be bored. See, there's a very interesting thing. When children these days at a very young age start saying, I'm feeling bored, I find it very strange. It is very sad actually. Because boredom should not be, we should develop children, or we should allow children to grow in a way that they never feel, they shouldn't know what it means to be bored. Always look at something new, and the enthusiasm, like a small infant, when you see, you'll go run behind this object, it'll go behind that object, you'll suddenly see something. It'll never get bored. When the mind starts playing, the mind starts developing, then boredom also sets in. Why? Because you are in this pattern. Because I want to fulfill something, I want something, I want to achieve to something, I want to get to something. And that pattern, and I am not able to. So then then I don't like this. Then when I'm keeping quiet, I'm sitting quiet, I'm not doing anything. Oh, should I do something? All a very psychologically um, unstable state we are in, where we try to go and constantly look for something new. We look for something new, not realizing it's something new is always occurring. So it's a very funny predicament of our mind. Very funny predicament of our mind. So that is why we are wanting to give something new constantly to our mind, to keep it distracted. Keep it distracted. But if we bring our mind to a point where I am just doing things because I have to do it. There is joy in just doing it, not joy because of doing something. There is a difference. We are always now, like, we are doing satsang. There is joy in just doing satsang. That's all. There is just joy in doing satsang. At the end of this satsang, after 25 satsangs, will I get Bhagavad Sakshatkaram? If we sit with an agenda like that, 26th satsang will be boring. Why? Because after 25th, I didn't get anything. The point is lost. During satsang, did we enjoy? The process, did we enjoy? That is all there is. Finished. After we get up, we move. They enjoy the next thing we do. We move. Enjoy the next thing we do. So this renewal, this is Saundarya Lahari, which means the new wave keeps rising and rising and rising. And this needs to occur. This needs to happen. So closing with the shloka. So what he says here, we went on a big roller coaster, but Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrit Prabhava Pralayasthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam. All this process is occurring right here, right now, within us all the time. And we we can collapse it and we can say this creation, this sustenance, this destruction constantly occurring. It's happening all the time and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. Can I get up the next day and see the same sun, the same plants, the same tree, the same house, the same people walking around, everything with the same joy? And this we can do. Nobody can do this for us. So it's a two-sided coin. That's all I wanted to kind of bring about to our attention, to say that one part is, yes, there is a cyclical nature of things which we are wanting to break, and we want to liberate ourselves from the cycle. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jathare shayanam. So again and again I am born and I die, and I born and I die. I want to break this cycle. I want to be liberated from this cycle. But how is that possible? Right here, right now. Liberation is not something that will suddenly put us. The same people, Jivan Mukti, the ones who have attained to Jivan Mukti, are able to see everyday new things. They are not waiting to die. They are not saying, oh, yo porumpa. They are not waiting to die. They are seeing, when the time comes, the prarabdha gets over, the body will drop. But till then, they are enjoying life. See, this is very important. We need to remember. We have to enjoy life, means bunjitha. Magrudah kasya suddhanam. What is it? Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha. See, the Upanishad itself is saying, renounce everything and enjoy life. Jaliya iru. எல்லாத்தையும் விட்டுட்டு போய் இதுல ஐயோ எனக்கு எதுவுமே இல்லையே அப்படின்னு உட்கார சொல்லல. Upanishad is not saying go into depression that you don't have anything. Enjoy because you know, A, this is temporary. B, there is constant movement. Things are happening constantly. New things are happening. And C, you are not attaching to one thing of the past. Something has happened today, you're moving on to the next thing. Something is happening, you're moving on to the next thing. This renewal of experience, constant recognition, and also tena tyaktena. You're renouncing what? Your desires also. Utreshana, vitteshana, lokeshana. All the desires, your eshanas, the desires you're renouncing. Renounce. And then when we live, we can live with so much joy that it doesn't matter. Right? Abandonment. We spoke about abandonment at Mathura. So can we be like that? And then we experience that experience of what Krishna is talking about. Krishna is saying this, I am everything. Everything is happening around, inside. All of this is happening. And it's, although he will say that it's happening in you also, but Krishna is not in that state to recognize that, oh, this is happening inside me. He's saying that it's happening in me. I am Bhagavan. So look at this. So that way.
Correct. இந்த ரெபடிஷன் சொன்னேன் இல்லையா, ஒரு ஸ்டேஜில் வந்து காலத்துலேருந்து சந்தியாவனம் பண்ணும்போது இதே சந்தியாவனம், இதே தான், இதே மந்திரம், இதே அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நினச்சிட்டு இருந்தேன். பட் what I felt was, it is that knowledge that will allow you, help you to break out of the cycle. The I realize that the sun which I am praying to is not the same sun. It is changing. It is not in the same place. It is like, நம்ம ஒருத்தர் புதுசாக ஒருத்தர் பார்க்குறோம்னா, நம்ம வந்து will always be nice to him, polite to him. ஒரு நாள் பழகி போச்சுனாக்கா, முதல் தடவை பார்க்கும்போது நம்ம மேபி சொல்லிவிட்டோம், நமஸ்காரம் சொல்லுவோம். ஒரு வருஷம் தினம் அவரை பார்த்துருக்கோம்னா என்ன சௌக்கியமா அப்படின்ட்டு கை காமிச்சு போடும். That what you call is that acquaintance reduces your interest in that, and it becomes a monotony.
Familiarity breeds contempt ன்னு சொல்லுவாளே, அதுதான்.
Exactly. So the moment we realize that it is today is a new sun, அப்படின்னும் போது அந்த சன்னை வந்து நம்ம திருப்திப்படுத்தணும் அப்படின்னும் போது சந்தியானம் வந்து it becomes, it becomes new, a renewed one. You don't feel that monotony or the same repetition. Yeah. அதுதான் அதை வந்து நம்ம எல்லா செயல்களையும் பார்த்துட்டோம்னாக்கா
Correct.
We feel that monotony, and we'll be able to come out of the cycle. And again, another the knowledge of that particular in action on the action or the knowledge in the mind, if it is able to register and realize it, then we are able to break that monotony.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. Thank you, Mama. It's beautiful. Om कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि सदाशिवायेति समर्पयामि जगदम्बिकायै इति समर्पयामि सद्गुरुनाथायेति समर्पयामि हरि ओम तत्सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। देवा